Solana has about 400 millisecond latency. Arbitrum has 265 milliseconds. Omega on our testnet right now is 10 milliseconds. And that means you can actually unlock immense amount of capital efficiency. You can run complicated strategy. For consumer application, all the interaction feels real time. This is why we insist of calling MegaETH the first real-time blockchain. It feels smooth. It feels interactive. It feels like a Web2 technology.
We want to give Web2 builders a reason to explore an entirely different stack. Take what they're familiar with building on Web2 rails, but also understand what crypto introduces to those products.
Hi everyone, welcome to Unchained, your no-hype resource for all things crypto. I'm your host, Laura Shin. Mantle is pioneering blockchain for banking, a revolutionary new category at the intersection of TradFi and Web3. Follow Mantle_official to learn more. Brief detour. If you've ever opened X and thought, wait, what happened overnight in crypto? You're not alone. Things move fast, and most updates are either too noisy or too late. That's why we created Unchained Daily, our coffee break newsletter that breaks down exactly what mattered in the past 24 hours. If this sounds like something you'd want in your inbox daily, find the link in the description. I'm here with Shuyao Kong, co-founder of MegaETH, and Amir Almaimani, head of ecosystem at MegaETH.
Hey, Laura.
Hey, Laura. Thanks for having us.
So Shuyao and Amir, congratulations on your massively successful ICO. Since MegaETH hasn't actually gotten much airtime on Unchained, let's just start with the basics. You're an L2 on Ethereum. Why did you choose to build your chain as an L2 on Ethereum and not as a competing L1?
Yeah, so we built MegaETH not to be a layer 1 or a layer 2. We built MegaETH to be the most performant, the fastest blockchain ever possible. And the reason to build such a performant chain actually came from a deep frustration that our industry actually has not seen new novel application ever since DeFi summer. Every time you have a new chain, you have the same set of applications and people do the same thing. And upon digging further, we realized that it's because the infrastructure is actually not ready. It is not akin to Web2 level. And that's why a lot of developers feel uninspired. And that's the reason we built MegaETH. It's not as a layer 1, layer 2, but as a super performant real-time blockchain. So builders can actually build Web3 application that makes you feel like it's Web2 applications.
Yeah, no, and piggybacking on what you just said too, we basically took it to the logical conclusion. I think people kind of harken back to these archaic sort of like mental models of like L1, L2, when in reality, what you should be optimizing for is creating an execution environment that allows for net new experiences. And that's what we really try to double down on. And as we will probably get into later on too, we try to complement that with really incubating net new applications on top of Mega.
All right. So yeah, let's talk. I mean, Shuyao kind of started to talk about this, but like, what would you say are the main problems that you would like to solve with MegaETH?
I think the biggest one is lack of applications, lack of novel application, right? So everyone, when they go on a new ecosystem, is the same landing protocol, is the same AMM, same trading venue. And sometimes you get a GameFi here and there, but honestly, no one is using it. So the problem we're trying to find is, can we do something new on Mega? And what do I mean by something new? There are really two categories of novelties in my head. The first set is, can you bring new and novel assets that you can trade on chain instead of the typical coins you see here and there, or you can trade on centralized exchange. And the second is, can you find novel interactive ways to trade the assets? Instead of staring at a chart, can you gamify it? Can you tap trading? Can you put in different part of your wallet, or maybe you can trade without wallet? So the problem we're trying to solve is to create net new experiences and net new asset onto blockchain.
And it really boils down to just performance as well. I mean, at the end of the day, what Mega enables when you, again, centralized block production, decentralized block verification, and just optimized hardware as well. You create a net new design space for builders. You have unlocks on the side of latency, unlocks on the side of throughput, unlocks on the side of side of contract size. And with that, you're able to build, as she was saying, order book-based lending protocols, fully on-chain spot clubs, fully on-chain perk clubs. These are experiences that again, when you have consensus in that critical path, you're unable to create these more expressive kind of applications that Web2 users are obviously accustomed to at this point in time.
Okay, yeah. I mean, you guys are sort of hinting at this, but let's dive a little into the technical aspects that separate MegaETH from other L2s. Describe, because obviously, I mean, everybody knows there are some very successful L2s that are already out there. So what are some of the, tech specs that you think set MegaETH apart from the existing L2s?
Yeah, so I mean, we can compare ourselves to other layer 2 in terms of architecture, and I will articulate the difference, but I would end with why being layer 1, layer 2 does not matter. So in terms of comparison with other layer 2, the biggest differentiation for Mega is actually our data structure. So my co-founder, Elon, he went to Stanford, studied low latency data center compute for 6 years, finished his PhD, and stumbled upon a blockchain and looked at a blockchain scaling trilemma. And he thought, wait, everyone in the crypto world is actually not that smart, because what you need to do is to measure the bottleneck of an EVM blockchain, so you understand why it is slow. And once you measure it, and then you build a performance system that actually solves the problem. So he spent 6 months basically measuring EVM blockchain and realized that the bottleneck was the Merkle Patricia trie. So then what Mega did is we completely rewrote our data structure. We came up with a new name, which is called SALT, and that actually eliminates 99% of the slowness. So that, I would say, is a big differentiation. The second part is obviously we are proudly using a centralized sequencer, albeit it will be rotating later on, so that we can get what I believe is the most important performance metric. Again, does not matter whether you're layer 1 or layer 2, it is latency. For all the past 8 years, Laura, you and I have been in crypto, everybody talk about throughput. It is important. You can get to like 10 million TPS and it sounds really sexy, but it does not deliver actual benefits to builders. What we realized that what really matter, especially to consumer application founders, is actually latency, which basically means the moment you click a transaction and it gets recorded on the block. So for example, Solana has about 400 millisecond latency. Arbitrum has 265 milliseconds. Omega on our testnet right now is 10 milliseconds. And that means you can actually unlock immense amount of capital efficiency. You can run complicated strategy. For consumer application, all the interaction feels real time. This is why we insist of calling MegaETH the first real-time blockchain. It feels smooth. It feels interactive. It feels like a Web2 technology.
Especially like given today as well. I mean, people's attention spans are virtually non-existent. People expect fast feedback loops. So when people are subject to, again, even 400 millisecond block times, that's a moment that those 400 milliseconds could obviously grab your attention elsewhere. What we're able to do here is create kind of that Web2 feel, but on crypto rails.
So it sounds like almost you're not competing with other L2s. It almost sounds like you're trying to compete with some version of just almost like Web2 apps, but then it has crypto capability or something. Is that how you think about it, or?
I would say that's a correct framing. So as far as like we're concerned, we want to give Web2 builders a reason to explore an entirely different stack. Take what they're familiar with building on Web2 rails, but also understand what crypto introduces to those products. To date, though, people are typically not necessarily encouraged to participate because of performance limitations. I mean, if you even look at, I was actually taking a look at some developer reports a couple of weeks ago, and even like top of funnel builders, even though there's been a drop off in builders over the last, call it, year or so coming into crypto, those top of funnel builders seem to be gravitating towards more high performance chains. And that's not a coincidence. People are coming from systems that are, again, significantly more optimized for bandwidth, optimized for throughput, optimized for everything in that realm. They want to be able to build something that they're familiar with. If they're building products that can only service 100 people at a time, that's not the point of them ever wanting to come over to crypto.
Okay, so it sounds like essentially part of the way you're achieving that is by making this trade-off to have a little bit more centralization. So, you're starting with a single sequencer. Shuyao mentioned that you will eventually go to a rotating sequencer. But are you thinking about like at some point decentralizing the sequencing, or is that just very far off in the future, or not a goal? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say something that many of your audience would probably disagree. I think layer twos are more decentralized than many layer ones. So for layer one, their security comes from their validators, and it's very easy to bribe the validators of a random layer one, where a lot of the layer one validators are controlled by the foundation. And if you give the founder some red packet, maybe they will give you a little validator, right? But for a layer two, like Mega or any other layer two, in order to do evil, we have to bribe the entire validator set of Ethereum, and that's a lot more costly. So when we chose the architecture of being a layer two, we believe that Mega is the end game of building a blockchain because we are a centralized sequencer that is building on a maximally decentralized base layer. So I do not believe that the centralization is a bug. I think it is a beautiful feature. But going back to your original question, would we ever decentralize sequencer? I think we would be mid-curving building blockchain if we centralize the sequencer and then 2 years later we decentralize it one more time to reintroduce consensus. We might as well just building a layer one. So what we're trying to do is maintaining a one sequencer that's running at any time, but because the sequencer can be rotated, that introduce censorship resistant in a very clever way. By the way, this is actually how traditional finance work as well. So when the market is up in Tokyo in the East, your servers are in Japan and vice versa in the West.
Yeah, and I mean, to that point too, I mean, I think people are pretty dogmatic when they think about decentralization. Everyone kind of goes back to like, oh, a decentralized blockchain looks like X, looks like Y, has this many validators. When in reality, we just don't view it as this binary thing of you're decentralized or you're not. At the end of the day, what are some properties of decentralization? It's censorship resistance and escape credibility. Am I able to withdraw my capital whenever I choose to? Are there forced exits? These are the things that matter. When it comes to the actual block production as well, with a rotating sequencer, you still see sort of points of decentralization, but at a less granular level. So rather than having block production happen across like many validators one by one, we're having block production just rotate across a handful of validators or block producers here. So it's basically taking one step further out and optimizing again for like pragmatism. If you need to create a system that can rival Web2, you have to make these sort of trade-offs. But again, decentralization is not something that is immediately lost because you're making these trade-offs.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like we're at this moment in time with it when a lot of projects are taking this sort of hybrid approach of like some pieces are decentralized and some are centralized to kind of optimize for user experience. So yeah, it feels like the strategy is kind of shifting a little, like almost maybe early on, maybe because of the I guess you could, just say threat of regulatory action. A lot of founders kind of optimize for decentralization, but now obviously we're in a very different regulatory climate. And so people are being a little bit more pragmatic. Let's talk about the mega token because I'm sure people want to talk about the sale. So we're going to get to that, but just let's lay some of the groundwork about the mega token. Explain to me, what the use cases are for the or how it'll be used.
Yeah, so there are a few utilities with the mega token. Obviously, there is a governance component to it. Then the token can also be used to rotate the sequencer. You can stake the token to do that. And then the next one is a proximity market where by using Mega and you can stake. I'm very careful to use the word staking because it means so many different things in crypto, as you know. But you can put it somewhere and decide how close you are to the sequencer, because the closer you are to the sequencer, the faster your transaction gets executed. And lastly, we have a very novel, I would think, a long-term tokenomic, which is called KPI vesting. And the philosophy is very simple. I do not believe a founding team deserve to take 20% of a protocol's token after working, let's say, for 2 or 3 years. I believe in a TradFi Web2 model where if a team does really well, they earn their extra token. So I think Mega is the only protocol where the team actually, founding team, we're taking only 9% of the entire protocol. And we will have a very handsome earnout if the protocol does really well based on a set of KPIs. So very much inspired from Elon Musk, where he took $1 as a salary and then obviously a lot of Tesla stock when things go well.
Okay. It's funny because, of course, I'm the one who wrote a book on Ethereum, but I feel like Ethereum's the original allocators, or sorry, the original, people who got allocations. I think that was also 9%. So maybe that's the only other one.
That's what he told me. Vitalik told me the same. He's like, oh yeah, you did the same. If you look at our tokenomics, we actually follow quite what Ethereum has done, right? Max decentralizing, like giving token to early investors. Yeah, Amir.
Oh yeah, no. And I mean to like Chu's point about KPI vesting too. Time-based vesting is just a broken model that makes everyone's lives, just insiders at least, like much easier. You're not really expected to do anything. Time passes. The chain itself doesn't have to be successful, but you can still have an exit. Like we're in it for the long haul, and again, like our success is largely predicated on the chain itself succeeding. For that to happen, we need to show and like demonstrate like meaningful, measurable milestones. Which is why for the KPI vesting, we've kind of broken it down into 4 buckets. One focusing on sort of application level growth, ecosystem growth. One focusing on just general performance of MegaETH itself. One focusing on ETH decentralization, and then MegaETH decentralization too. But again, that sort of forces us to know that like as float increases, that float is increasing because the chain itself is meeting these like massive milestones and it's warranted. So yeah, that's very much the philosophy behind it.
Okay, and then Shuyao, you very briefly referred to this, but I want to explore it a little further. So the token also, I guess, will be used for bidding for the low latency slots near the sequencer or something. Is that so? Explain a little bit more about that. I guess this is called proximity markets. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so again, in the case of they can be applications that benefit from having market makers kind of live closely to the validator itself or the sequencer itself, simply staking some amount of mega in order to have that sort of access. But again, these are kind of like
it is driven by like literal physical proximity.
Correct. So
Okay.
effectively, like being in the same data center.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that part is really interesting because this is another trend I feel like I'm seeing. Like there's so much more conversation around that. Yeah, and also even just with like the launch of 00, which is really focused on that. And then I also was wondering, so when I look at kind of how MegaETH is set up, it looks like there's multiple tokens that can be used for gas. From my reading, I figured it was MegaETH and MUSD. Is there anything else, or are those the 3?
So when we launch, ETH will be the main gas fee. I mean, ETH is literally in the name. Via Paymaster and a bunch of other technology, people can use, for example, Mega as gas fee. And also USDm, which is our stablecoin, and Amir is the master brain behind it.
Oh, USDm. I thought it was MUSD.
Yeah. MUSD is, we were initially going with MUSD, but then MetaMask took it before us.
Oh, no wonder. Okay. Yeah. So I did learn it the other way. Okay. Well, so then what I need to understand here is like just if I think about all the different uses of the Mega token, then it almost feels to me like it might eventually be something like a B2B kind of coin because it's like very involved in just a lot of these nuts and bolts of how the system works. Is that correct? Or do you feel like eventually it'll evolve to have more uses or?
I think it's very much a dynamic token in that regard. It's not something like as more sources of kind of like utility come up. It's something that we're definitely like open to exploring. We love to experiment. I think something that we definitely were trying to avoid is falling into the trap of just being a valueless governance token where people have absolutely no reason to want to interact with Mega itself. We wanted the token itself to have a pretty integral role in how the system itself behaves. So that was very much the thought process behind it to start.
And will the token also have emissions or inflation or?
So no inflation, fixed supply. Yep.
Wow. Okay. So there's basically no dilution, like looking forward, or?
As of now, no.
Okay. Oh, interesting. And do you have any, would you like to expound on how you designed, the tokenomics and, why you made these different choices and what you think perhaps other projects could learn?
Well, we're not launched yet, so maybe when we launch and become successful, then I will have a lot to say. But the Chineseness in me are very shy before I launch anything. I think the philosophy was always, as Amir mentioned, right, have real utility and give people a real reason. I think in 2025, just launching a token and pretending that there is any usage to it is gone. We have to be very thoughtful, and the token needs to be part of your on-chain economy. And people, maybe business interact with it, consumer interact, or I think more often in crypto, an entity is both business and an individual. And I hope someone finds something to do with our token. And obviously, we hope our token can support our ecosystem, which is our accelerator program called Mega Mafia.
Okay, yeah, which we'll talk about in a little second. So, all right, let's talk about the way you sold this token, because so you've done 3 public sales. There was a $200 million round with Echo, a $500 million round with your Fluffle soulbound NFT, and then now the latest, which was this, it was
conviction round.
Sorry, what?
It's called the conviction round.
Right, which was on Sonar, which is related to Echo. So explain, why you chose this particular method. Like, what purpose did you have with each of the different public sales?
Yeah, the philosophy behind doing this public sale is to make sure that retail consumers, investors are participating in price discovery. Instead of, I think for the past many years, it was VC who dictate price discovery on their own table. And by the time the token is launched, they reach multiple billions of dollars, even though the ecosystem is completely copy pasta. So, when we first came out, our lead investor decided it's $200 million round. It was extremely oversubscribed. So from my perspective, instead of giving to another investor who probably forget about me in 6 months, I should just give it to a retail investor who took an interest or wanted to bet on an early stage ecosystem. And Kobe was one of our angel, and we're very happy to work with him. It was the 200 million round sold out, I think the first 5 million in 57 seconds or something. I think gave us a lot more confidence. And then, so that was the 200 million round, was mainly because I think retail needs to get in very early on before the press discovery is finished. And then the Fluffle round was interesting. And I would say that it was not as well educated as my other 2 rounds. I learned a lot of lessons. But the idea was we wanted to use crypto native way to involve people, and we wanted to embed culture into MegaETH. And we happen to be a very fast chain that looks like a rabbit. So we're like, oh, why not design a cute soulbound token? So that was the Fluffle round. That was a 500 million round. And then the recent Sonar round was very interesting. And I think it was even harder for us to design actually to do it. Because on the one hand, I was worried people would say like, oh, look at these mega people, they're launching another public sale. But on the other hand, I also do have other VC investors who want to give me more money, and building a chain is very expensive, in case people don't realize. So I was, faced with 2 decisions one more time. Do I take an investor's money who again will forget about me in 6 months, or do I take from retail? But then here the challenge is, how am I going to price my round? I do not know. So that's why our Sonar round was an auction. People can bid from $1 million up until a certain level. And then we're like, okay, do we cap it? Do we not cap it? Like, I don't know, if we don't cap it, what if it goes to many billions. I don't think I deserve it. So we're like, you know what? We're going to cap it at 999 million. So it's not a unicorn round. I think this is a way how we hold ourselves accountable to keep going. And obviously the Sonar round was 30x oversubscribed. There was $1.4 billion who are competing for $50 million allocation, and over $100 million people who chose to lock the token for a whole year.
Yeah, I mean, this is super interesting. I just want to dig into the one piece. So obviously the Sonar one, I'm sure everybody's going to be interested. But before we get to that, I just have to ask, when you said that you feel like the soulbound NFT was, that round, the Fluffle one, that was where you like made mistakes or whatever. Like what was it about that particular round that you felt didn't go well?
It was purely execution. So Mega, we are a performance blockchain team. We deal with like really deep tech infrastructure, but building a soulbound token NFT is pure product. And I didn't have people to do it. And, we had to use an outsourced dev shop to do it. And obviously they don't care as much about Mega as I do. So it was painful. It was purely the execution.
Okay. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we will dig into what happened, how they made a lot of decisions in this last round, because all of this stuff is super interesting. So stick around, and we will be right back. Mantle leads the establishment of blockchain for banking as the next frontier. UR is the access layer that transforms Mantle Network into a purpose-built vertical platform, the blockchain for banking, that enables financial services on-chain. UR unifies and vertically aligns Mantle's focus on payments, trading, and assets. MI4, METH protocol, functions FBTC, supported by developer grants, ecosystem incentives, and the industry-leading distribution platform through the UR app, Reward Station, and Bybit launch pool. All economic activity within UR will be captured by Mantle Network to further drive value to token holders and establish its significance in blockchain for banking. Follow Mantle_official to learn more. Brief detour. If you've ever opened X and thought, wait, what happened overnight in crypto? You're not alone. Things move fast, and most updates are either too noisy or too late. That's why we created Unchained Daily, our coffee break newsletter that breaks down exactly what mattered in the past 24 hours. If this sounds like something you'd want in your inbox daily, find the link in the description. Back to my conversation with Shuyao and Amir. So let's dig into this latest ICO, because I mean, this is so interesting. You had this auction that you described, but you just posted about how you decided to make these allocations. And this post was like incredibly fascinating. There were, multiple different social scores that you used, like you literally used the word hand selected a few times in the description of how you made these choices. So describe for me the whole process and how you came up with the design as well.
Sorry. Oh, you want me to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go.
So as far as the general approach, it was really trying to balance it. At the end of the day, the trade-off that you're always making here is, do you want to cast a super wide net and give everyone exposure, or do you want to go super deep with people who have demonstrated excitement, enthusiasm around the project, have demonstrated to be active on-chain users, and just generally contributing members within this ecosystem that we're in, which is something that we care quite a bit about, because obviously we want people who are going to be with us, not just day one, dump the token and leave. We want people to be contributing members of the mega ecosystem long term. So these were the various dimensions that we were measuring when it came to kind of landing on an official score for each person, and then just weighting general bids. But yeah, that was very much the thought process. It was making sure that the people who deserve to have skin in the game get their skin in the game.
Yeah, I would add is I basically stare at our Excel sheet and database for 3 days. I almost went blind. And something I held myself accountable was, if I open up our algorithm and our selection process, will I be proud? Will I be able to justify each and every one of my selection? That was really, I think, my own internal benchmark. I think it fundamentally comes to, there are a lot of people with big accounts who would talk to me like, hey, give me allocation, I'm going to talk good about you. But am I going to give allocation to someone like that compared to someone who's been supporting us, even though there were a lot of people who, condemn our approach or did not like our ecosystem, right? So you got to ask yourself, who are the long-term builders here? And then there are a lot of human emotion in it. So we build an algorithm. So as you can see from the article, it was very mathematical. So we can point people to their score and be like, this is exactly what you're getting. And to go more specific, we get oversubscribed by locked participants. So for those who did not lock it, unless you are a huge MegaETH supporter, you probably are not getting your allocation filled. That's where we get some of the complaints. They're like, hey, I have 200K Twitter follower. Why don't you give me some allocation? I'm like, bro, you have not done anything. You didn't want to lock. Maybe there's a reason there.
And actually, I also wanted to ask, so as we mentioned, you had done the 3 sales, but then why no airdrops? Like, it seems like there's a reason that you chose not to do that.
I mean, yeah, for what I was saying earlier too, it simply is incentivizing the wrong behavior. At the end of the day, we have to think back to like, why did airdrops even come into practice to begin with? Is more from a sort of like legal regulatory kind of side versus simply, oh, we're doing this because it makes sense. As far as we're concerned, we try to think again like from first principles and like what is pragmatic and what will actually add to the longevity of Mega itself. And we simply just don't see airdrops as being that. We have a flavor of on-chain incentives, which we briefly allude to in the public sale, which we plan to have over the course of, call it the first 6 to 8 months of mainnet. But again, we're very focused and very intentional as far as who has access to those additional incentives. It's the same people who've demonstrated demand to have actual skin in the game too. So we're trying to sidestep the oftentimes like misstep that projects make, which is simply just handing tokens to anyone, regardless of whether they're actually aligned with your project or not. And then they simply just benefit, dump it, move on to the next thing.
Okay, yeah. I mean, what was interesting was there is a group that in the post you said did largely say that they were not going to hold it for a year, but it was these early participants and they were part of the like hand selected group. So describe, who those were. And I mean, I was struck by the fact that you publicly like listed all of them, which I thought was really interesting. So just explain like who those people were, what they had done, why you decided to name them, all those bits.
Yeah. So some of them are extremely well-known active Mega supporters. So for example, 0x Ultra, dude actually build most of our analytics dashboards. Like I think he's like a part-time Mega team member, very, very active. A lot of them are our community regional leads in different countries. They've hosted, external events. Even though we told everyone day one that there's no airdrop, these people still supported Mega. I think probably something that we do. Maybe we have a good merch that resonated with them. We have our Discord mods, for example, or people spread technical article about Mega because, people look at Mega, they're like, okay, this name is retarded. This project's literally calling themselves MegaETH. They're a centralized sequencer. What is so good about this? But it really takes some smart people to explain the technical nuances behind our technology. So yeah, people who have done many different contributions. In fact, I don't think it matters if you just like yap about Mega on the timeline. That's not what we care about. We care about the quality of your contribution that is deeply reflected in that list.
Okay. Yeah. And why did you decide to publicly name them? Like just to kind of what's the word? Publicly appreciate them or
transparency. Everything we do is open to everyone. I think for the past many years, we have murky tokenomics. We have murky different behavior by the insiders. No one knows where airdrop goes even. No one knows what holds what. We just wanted to be very open on what we do as a team.
And then public acknowledgement we just think is super important too. Like we want people to see like what we appreciate in a community. These are folks that, again, have been with us for well over a year. And we want their actions to also be things people look to as far as like, how do I be a contributing member of the MegaETH ecosystem?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is all, around like incentives and trying to find your missionaries and not attract mercenaries.
Exactly.
So another group that you quote unquote hand selected were app builders who selected to lock their tokens for a year. And then the last group was the public participants who just were not part of the community. And what was interesting was, then you went into detail on like how you scored those people. Even just using that phrasing, like scoring people, that's kind of interesting. So talk a little bit about like how you came up with the scoring system, what kind of behaviors or metrics you valued, why did you choose those metrics?
Yeah, so luckily there are actually a bunch of existing metrics that we can just plug into as part of the formula. So things we really care about is this person active on chain? Yeah. We are building a blockchain. If our investor base are not using a blockchain and only trading on centralized exchanges, probably doesn't help with mega GDP. So that's super important. The second one is it's called money score. It's basically a combination of your social score and different reputation system that we're basically pulling API. And then the third one is, whether you are supporting Mega. So whether you have a Discord row, where you've talked about Mega. And again, here is not about how many times you yap Mega, but actually like real contribution. So, and then we apply weight differently. Oh, sorry. One last one is whether you have supported our Mega Mafia ecosystem.
Exactly.
Because Mega is nothing without our apps.
So interacting with examples of that is like interacting with like CAP, and then whether you hold CUSD, for example, or if you hold we have a social application called Lemonade, almost like a decentralized Luma, and if you hold their flagship NFT, Lemonheads, or if you're a Bad Buns holder. So again, these are kind of points. Obviously, it's not perfect, but these are ways in which we kind of measure how people are interacting with the ecosystem today. And that buy-in is something that we value quite a bit, because at the end of the day, our success relies heavily on our applications also winning.
Okay. And you also talked about Sybil attacks. I know that you used a bunch of different tools like bubble maps, Echo, some internal tools to ward those off. How effective did you find that? Like, did you catch any major Sybil farming?
A lot, yes. Yeah, so all the sources that you mentioned, Echo supplied us a bunch of addresses. We have a killer data scientist internally, and his job is just like a map different wallet addresses on chain. And we ban all of them.
And can you talk about the scale of them or the number? I'm just so curious. Like, are people? I mean, were they really trying to game the system, or did they seem to? Yeah, were they trying to hide it, or I don't know.
No, yeah, I mean, like, there's in terms of like exact numbers at this very moment, don't have that like off the top of my head, but there are certainly like clusters throughout the public sale where it was just very clearly a single individual trying to stibble with, call it like 400, 500, 600 KYC accounts. So shout out to Dimitri again. Dimitri did an incredible job of doing a lot of that filtering for us.
And wait, so I'm sorry, they like somehow obtained 400 different KYC, like PII, I guess, or how were they doing that?
As far as like their processes, I don't have like full visibility into it, but again, to participate in the sale, you would have had to go through KYC. So many of folks either had friends of theirs or some other way in which they've managed to sort of amass all of those accounts for them to then participate in the sale. But thankfully, we managed to catch all of that.
Yeah, a lot of them were connected wallets, and you can attach a few wallets under one KYC, so it doesn't mean that they're all replicate KYC. But I think one lesson learned I had from this whole process is finding real human are hard. Once you find them, you have to treasure them.
I love it. That's a great motto. Okay, so Shuyao, you actually were on the show before to talk about MegaETH's decision to pursue a native stablecoin. This was even before the whole USDH hyperliquid stablecoin. What's the word?
Auction.
Their moment on
Episodes.
the
Yeah.
timeline, which definitely
Yeah.
took center stage for a while. But why don't we just briefly touch on that again? Like, explain why it is that you decided to pursue a native stablecoin for MegaETH, and just like talk a little bit about what role you see that playing for the MegaETH ecosystem.
Definitely. I mean, like starting off, we just kind of subscribe to the belief that economic models for chains are broken. And if anything, they're at odds with the actual chain itself and the applications reaching escape velocity and seeing real adoption. What I mean by all of that is if you look at existing sort of L2s today, a lot of that revenue is being generated from priority fees. The issue is priority fees are coming at direct odds with the actual applications, giving their users the best possible user experience. Because if you're and these applications are forcing their users to pay some additional amount of capital in order to have their transaction get processed, obviously that over time could discourage people from wanting to actually interact with these applications at all. So as far as we're concerned, we had to think through like what are revenue models that allow the actual chain revenue to scale with adoption. And rather than having them act at odds with one another, how do we actually have them move up and to the right with one another? So a very obvious low-hanging fruit in doing that, since we're running our sequencer at cost, we're running it as first in, first out, is let's tie a sort of unified stablecoin to solve this very pressing issue, and have this sort of be the anchor when it comes to transactions across the chain, across our applications, et cetera. So it came definitely from sort of that line of thinking.
All right, so let's talk about your Mega Mafia accelerator. Explain, why you decided to start it and how it works.
I can talk about why we decided to start it, and then Amir is again the mastermind of Mega Mafia. So, as mentioned, the sole purpose of MegaETH is to give birth to novel applications. But we are not application builders; we are chain builders. So, in the early days, I was like, where do I find these application builders who are actually wanting to build not an AMM, So, and it's almost impossible to go out and just find a random builder. You have to attract the good ones, because, what they're trying to do is, spend the next 5 years of their life to build something with you. And so with that philosophy, we started the Mega Mafia program, and the goal is to find the best builders and live with them. What do I mean by live with them? I had this philosophy where I think in the age of AI, the best thing you can do with someone else is to spend quality time, where you just spend physical time together. And I think that's the only way you can get to know someone and be close to someone. So when we started Mega Mafia, I reached out to some builder friends, and the program was designed in a way where you would pitch your idea to us that leverages our unique technology. The application should not be working on any other chain other than MegaETH. And then you need to be willing to spend months living with me somewhere in the world. We've lived in Berlin together, Chiang Mai together, and this year we did Copenhagen in August together. And, the program lasts for a year, and, we help you with a bunch of go-to-market fundraising, which Amir can go deep into. But I would say the original dream of building Mega Mafia was to get a cohort of really good and hungry builders who are building novel things and who are, okay with living with each other for some time. Amir.
Definitely. And then just piggybacking on a lot of that, we're very opinionated. And I think the biggest issue is that we've seen with a lot of recent ecosystems of the past is if you kind of leave everything up to chance, you end up seeing an ecosystem form of just forks from other EVM environments. Again, we've built this massively new design space for builders. We wanted to take a very curated approach to showcasing what it is that's actually possible on this new real-time chain. So Mafia is our way of kind of establishing that standard of excellence that the rest of the ecosystem can kind of understand, recognize, and also try to compete within, if that makes sense. So when it came to kind of like Mafia itself, it's focusing heavily on builders that And again, like the builder profiles are very eclectic. We have people who come from like TradFi backgrounds, working as like former directors at BlackRock and Goldman, and kind of list goes on there. And then we also have the real like crypto natives, seasoned veterans from like DeFi 2.0. We have first-time founders that are just leaving university right now, coming into crypto, super curious, super hungry, have been in the trenches for the last 3 to 4 years. So the beauty is you kind of bring all these different personalities and like put them in a room for a month at a time. And you also start to see like how strengths start to rub off on others, how they start to like sort of lean on one another for inputs. And it's sort of like this very beautiful, like collaborative environment that emerges. And I think that's where a lot of the superpower is. And like to Shu's point about just like spending a lot of time in person, you don't get this when you just have a bunch of builders building in silos. And usually that's what people default to because it's just the easier path of, oh, this person wants to build on my chain. Here's a grant. Do what you have to do. Here's just like very basic set of KPIs. That's not what we're optimizing for. We want people who want to build something that will be able to stand on 2 feet, something that will play a meaningful role in just the general on-chain economy, not only on just MegaETH, but just broader crypto. And we want these defining applications. That's what we care about. That's what we're optimizing for.
And Shuyao, you mentioned briefly that you wanted the apps to build something that's not possible on other chains. So are there any specific ones that you want to call out? I know like in the very beginning of the episode, both of you had named just types of apps, but yeah, maybe talk in specifics about certain ones that you feel are new and different and only possible on MegaETH.
Yeah, no, definitely. So we have a team that's building, as she was saying earlier, tap trading. We have a team called Euphoria. Incredibly talented co-founders in Nathan and Casey. What they're basically looking to do is take something that is sort of only familiar to a very like small cohort of people, being like binary options trading, but making it something that is very digestible, interactive, and just very gamified. They want the experience itself to be so intuitive that it's like you're playing a game of like Brick Breaker or Snake. So what you basically have, and I wish we could like show a demo right now because they actually just pushed out their official like prod version, and it's very cool. But you basically have a trading grid right in front of you, and you have the price feed, which is updating in real time on chain. They're pushing, I think, feed every like 2 milliseconds, working closely with Redstone on doing this. But you basically get to click on the grid where you think the actual price feed will go. So if you think it's going to be at this price at this point in time, you drop a square there. And then if the price feed hits, you win the trade. If it doesn't, then you end up losing the trade itself. So that's one that we're really excited about in terms of just general enthusiasm and novelty of apps. I think that was something that when I first played with it, it was like a light bulb eureka moment. You can see how something like this will resonate, and it's something that will resonate beyond just like with more than just like a crypto audience. People who enjoy the gamification that Robinhood brought to the table, they're going to see something like this, and it's going to be like a massive, wow, this is so much fun. This is an entirely new way of me interacting with this financial instrument. So Euphoria is an example for me. Blitzo, which is in the second cohort, they're gamifying payments. So it's funny because in crypto, even like specifically for Mega too, until the second cohort, we didn't really have many people show so much enthusiasm around building in the payments realm. I think people conflate payments applications with wallets in crypto, but in my opinion, wallets are sort of pushing for very passive behaviors. Where it's simply you connect a wallet, you don't really do much in there. It's just acting as sort of a ledger for you to check in, see what your assets look like, etc. Whereas here, Will, Albert, Mark, they're looking to basically disrupt what people kind of do today with like Venmo or Cash App, where you kind of have that payments feel, but you also loop in this feeling of like dopamine inducing like sort of like gambling behaviors. So imagine a world where you're kind of at Starbucks, for example. You tap your Apple Pay. They have their own Blitzo card, which will act as a wrapper around people's existing credit cards. You actually get a drop down at the moment of transaction, where you can either you can coin flip basically to double or nothing your transaction. So you basically either pay double or you can get your transaction for free. The actual transaction itself settles in, again, like 10 milliseconds. So these are kind of the real time experiences that Mega itself is enabling that will resonate with an audience again that goes beyond crypto. I think the best data point I got of this is when I was chatting with my girlfriend's father, and he was vehemently against this idea of like hyper gambling. But funny enough, my girlfriend's sister, who's in that like kind of 20-year-old profile, who typically doesn't care at all about crypto, wasn't even listening to the conversation or seemed like as if she wasn't listening. And then as soon as we were done talking, she lifts her head up and she's like, wait, I would actually use that app. I'm like, that's the exact reaction kind of like that we want. We're tailoring experiences that will resonate with like Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and take these behaviors that they so very clearly demonstrate, but don't necessarily know how to verbalize as an ask in terms of a product. And I think that's what the Mafia builders are so great at doing too. Basically doing a lot of pattern recognition and creating products, very structured products around these like very like broken behaviors that you see on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, honestly, when you were describing those apps, it made me think, do you remember when, well, yeah, hopefully, I don't know, some people might be offended. So if you're offended, I'm just describing what other people were saying. But back when the tap to earn games were taking off on ton, a lot of
Yeah.
people were like, oh, but they're not fun games. Like you don't want to play them, you just want to make the money. And like hearing you describe this, it sounds more like, oh, the game itself is actually fun and you actually want to play. So it is kind of like, yeah, a further evolution of that previous craze. Okay, so you're in this place where now you've just had what I'm assuming is your last public sale. Is that correct? Yeah, and
Yeah.
and then and then next year you're going to face this moment where there's going to be these unlocks. So I'm assuming that feels like a sort of deadline to you of like you would want to accomplish certain things by that point. So talk a little bit about that. How are you thinking about this next year before those unlocks happen? And just like, yeah, talk a little bit more about your vision, I guess, because I would say over the next like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, so I am incredibly excited for not even next 1 year, but the next 6 months, because Mega, again, is nothing without our applications. And I'm very excited for people to actually experience crypto apps for the first time and that make them proud. I think there's so much stigma. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's an emotional, I think, endeavor for the Mega team, because I think we just believe that crypto will take over the world. It's strictly a much better system. So I think my goal is for the next 1 year, we're able to showcase the Mafia application to builders. We're going to welcome more independent application builder who can leverage the real-time technology. To me, I would love to see USDm, Amir's brainchild, to really fly. And we have a very healthy economic. I'm hoping the proximity market, the rotation sequencer would work out. I'm not super worried about a year later, our investors unlock. I hope they double down, right, in a year later. And then in the next 2 or 3 years, we have an incredible amount of products we want to push, both on the chain performance level, but also on the consumer level. So I think us as a company, our goal is to build a almost like an operating system in crypto that enable peer-to-peer technology or experiences to your average consumer users. And lastly, I would say that I think Mega has the best swag in crypto. So I wish to continue winning in that category. Amir, to you.
Yeah, no, everything that she says, and like ideally, I would just like us to just become this like black hole for on-chain innovation. I would love to like I've been yearning for kind of like the feeling that I had when I was like playing with Yearn for the first time, or just like experiencing DeFi summer for the first time. Obviously, you can never like recreate those exact experiences, but I'm hoping once we're live over the first year or 2 years, you actually have this like inflection point too, where it's sort of the start of the first real-time applications. and the kind of experimentation that comes along with that. So again, like we have visibility into everything that we have going on in the Mafia, which we're all super excited about, but I can't wait to see what third-party builders start to do, especially when the chain is live and just like being able to support them. And just like, again, making Mega the home for the applications that will onboard the next, call it, million normies that don't even know that they're using crypto rails. That's personally what I'm optimizing for.
Okay, you guys, this is hilarious. I decided to Google MegaETH swag because I was like, what does their swag look like? And I didn't realize, but the first link that I clicked on was for MegaDeath swag.
Exactly.
And I was like, whoa, okay, that's an interesting aesthetic they have. But anyway, yeah, I did, I think, find some of your swag, and yeah, it is really cool. It's like a little bit more of an anime aesthetic. Is that right? Am I looking at the right thing?
It's very much MegaETH and cypherpunk vibes.
Okay.
And our hat is perhaps the most sought after hat in the entire crypto. I don't have it with me right now.
I have it somewhere over there in the other room.
Okay. Well, people.
Yeah, and just like the general feel of the project too, just like first, like big shout out to Rose, our creative director, just like very much around like retrofuturism, creating that like very interesting like duality between the two.
Okay. All right. Is there anything I didn't ask you guys that you would want to mention before we wrap?
Is there anything about Mafia you want to mention, Amir?
About Mafia? No, I mean, just like we've seen like quite a bit of success so far. In aggregate, teams have raised between cohort 1 and cohort 2, which we have about 30 some teams at this point, north of $80 million from tier 1 funds like Paradigm, Dragonfly, kind of like the list goes on from there, which is very sort of humbling for us as a core team because it really speaks to the quality of builders we've been able to attract. As far as they're concerned, they're not incentivized by kind of like grants or anything of that matter. We don't have a grants program. We don't provide any sort of financial incentive. They're excited about the actual tech. Like our responsibility is being able to give them an execution environment that allows them to kind of realize their visions for what on-chain products should look like. So they've been incredible to collaborate with so far, and we have a few more coming out of stealth relatively soon.
Okay, great. All right, well, this was super fun. Thanks so much for coming on Unchained.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.